Welcome back to the Clone Cops podcast.
We missed you. I'm Phillip Cordell, co-writer and actor in Clone Cops.
I'm Danny Dones, co-writer and director.
And apologies for last time. I think my fly was down the whole time. This is why I have this beautiful Clone Cops pillow on my lap. I'm Chuck Hargett, Charles Royce on IMDb, VFX Supervisor and producer, Clone Cops.
All of that was so great.
Sorry. A lot of information.
I'm really sorry.
And I'm Corey Allen, cinematographer for Clone Cops. So again, welcome back, guys. This is episode 3, where we're going to spend a little time talking about designing the world of Clone Cops. We had a lot of stuff going on. We had the helmet, which is iconic at this point, the uniforms for the replicants, a ton of work designing the world of Nefari Corp, which we'll get into. Talk about some of our props, some of the set design, all those fun things. But let's start with the first big one, the helmet. Tell us where that came from.
Yeah, first off, I just want to say I'm so glad you outed yourself just now. With
the fly down?
No, with his alter ego, his pseudonym.
I was thinking I'm going to have to go back and watch episode 2 to catch that fly down.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so the helmet, when we originally conceived of the Clone Cop thing, we knew that we were going to cover their faces because we knew, we weren't going to be able to clone Phil. So we're days away from that technology.
Indie film hack. Cover his face.
So we figured, we're going to cover the clones' faces, so we need some kind of mask, some kind of covering. And I think the original concept was that we were going to do we were going to get like a welder's mask or something. And I was just kind of like
something janky. The plan was half baked and janky and an afterthought, right? We're like, well, we get some potted plants at Home Depot.
It was going to be like a plant pot, like a plastic planter at one point, and I was going to like 3D print some crap and glue it on there.
Just for the record, I'm so glad that was not the plan.
I wasn't even on Amazon. I think I was sending you guys stuff like, what if we use this for this part of the helmet?
Paintball masks. I mean, we were looking at a bunch of stuff that we could readily, easily get.
Yeah. And then we kind of had an epiphany. Well, I think it was before we did the concept art, right? That was partly why we got a concept artist, was we kind of, as we were talking about it more, and we were thinking about like long term what this movie's going to do and where we're going to go with it and how we're going to market it, we realized like, hey, this clone helmet thing is kind of our opportunity to make something iconic, something that's going to really stick out and be part of the zeitgeist. And I kind of kept throwing out like, what if Darth Vader was a planter? This is our chance to make that Darth Vader helmet or that Boba Fett helmet, and we should make it something unique and interesting and really special. So we reached out to Chris Butler, concept artist that I went to college with.
At Isoban,
yeah. And he put together some incredible concept art that really solidified what we were going to do with the clones and who the clones were, and kind of really rounded out and informed a lot of our Nefari Corp stuff as well.
Absolutely.
So that was where that all started, and then we reached out to Pop Printing.
I'm going to say something you guys aren't going to want to hear.
Better cover your ears.
We had no business making this movie without this helmet. It has become such an important, critical part of the brand identity. It's been so cool, that we did a 10 City Roadshow theatrical. And the very first place that we got out in costume in Philadelphia, Corey and Danny and I were walking up to the stairs where they shot Rocky, and we just hear, "Hey, Clone Cops, love you guys." And it was the helmet. You saw the helmet, saw the outfit, and it was just the most fulfilling feeling ever, right? We're like, how did you hear about Clone Cops? And it's because this thing's making its way into the algorithm, so glad that we leaned into the design and saw it for what it was, which is an opportunity to make the thing. When we were talking about, okay, what's the thumbnail for TVOD going to be? What's the DVD cover going to be? It just became real obvious that like, this is our identity. Yeah. We don't need to put me as an actor on there or whatever. It's like, it's the helmet.
Yeah. It's not only part of kind of an iconography that you guys were wanting to create, but in an earlier episode you were talking about everything being a spectacle, and that helmet is certainly a spectacle. Like, you can't forget it, right?
Yeah. And I think the helmet itself is a visual clue as to what we're going to do in the rest of the movie. There's so many elements of that that inform the viewer, like, this is the road that we're on, this is the path that we're taking. You know, there's a camera in there, so you know we're in a surveillance state. You know, the eyes look like aviator sunglasses, so it's like reminiscent of like Highway Patrol kind of stuff. So it's like this is a play on the iconic cop. You know, like with the hat is like the play on the iconic like dress hat for a patrol officer. And then the mustache we knew was a must, and I think to me adding the mustache was the like best thing that we did on the helmet, because there's that scene where you take the helmet off and you have the mustache on underneath, and it's just so funny. And your dumb face when you take that off is too funny.
And how art informs life. I had never had a mustache. I'd never worn a mustache in my life, and now I've had a mustache for 2.5, almost 3 years.
Nonstop. I can't imagine you without it.
It's a part of me. Everywhere I go, people shout out the stash. It's a real life-changing experience.
Yeah. I still prefer you without it.
That's for another story. All right, so that's the helmet, and it is 3D printed. It's incredibly comfortable to wear, so I've heard.
Super comfortable. No, you know, we just knew we needed to make a thing, right? And so reached out to Popped Printing out of Huntsville, Alabama, Daniel Thompson, and they put together, you know, we sent them the drawing, and they helped model it with us, come up with the 3D model, which now you've replicated on a smaller scale, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty cool.
It's fun, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a 2-piece print job, right? So there's the large bell shaped, and then the hat that goes on top, which honestly has been a godsend because I've been traveling with it all month. And one giant helmet actually won't fit into a bag, but when I take the hat off and the face mask,
cool.
it'll travel okay. And so those guys were just have been tremendous to work with, and you know, delivered on what we were looking for.
Yeah, that's great. Now, what about the shirt, the uniform? How did that design come to be?
Well, that's another piece of Chris's design, his concept art. His whole kind of idea behind that was that it would be something designed by committee. So he was a graphic designer that worked at Fruit of the Loom for a long time, and he got very used to that corporate structure of design where it goes through all these meetings and everybody gets to put their thumbprint on it, designed by committee kind of thing. And so that was kind of his satirical take on that, is that the clone himself has all of these kind of like disparate pieces that somebody along the line has tacked on. Like, he should be friendly, so they put a smiley face on there, but also he needs to be intimidating, so we put like a warning symbol on there. So a lot of that stuff came from Chris's original concept.
Yeah, and then the fun part was kind of taking that and then adding the stuff that he just Greeked in, you know, like, what does this say and what is this supposed to say? It was so much fun doing those shirts.
Well, and Charles is such a just fantastic graphic designer, but most of the stuff that you do is very sleek and minimal, yes. Right? And I remember the first time you looked at the shirt, and you're like, I don't know about this, but you figured it out.
Yeah.
You cracked it where it's like, it looks really great.
The first time it was kind of like all laid out in a really kind of, you know, linear order, and Danny was like, no, let's make it a little bit messier, a little bit more designed by committee, which is what he always said. Yeah.
I feel like that was my note to you on a lot of design from the beginning across the board throughout the whole movie was like, it needs to be worse. Like, it's too good. It looks too good. It needs to look crappier.
Make it worse.
Yeah. That was but that was great. And the uniforms really helped tie it all together, and man, what a great look. It's just really has turned in, like you're saying, to this iconic kind of thing, and it's everything that we hoped it would be. And yeah, every city we've gone to, somebody has recognized us unprovoked. Like, it's not us walking up to people being like, hey, it's people calling us out and shouting after us as we're walking around with you in the uniform.
Right, or we were in Louisiana in kind of the boonies shooting some content in a swamp, and there was a highway kind of nearby. And then that night we have a screening at a theater in Gonzales, and some woman and her daughter come over like, we saw y'all shooting today, you know, 45 minutes away. Yeah, you know, I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like, they saw this thing, and then they immediately put 2 and 2 together. You know,
it goes like right here into the brain.
Yeah, it does, man. And dude, kids flip out. They're like, Daddy, who's that man? I hear that all the time, and I give them a little hat tilt. Like, keeping you safe out here, kids.
Well, it does look like a cartoon character come to life. I mean, it is that look.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should just make it a cartoon.
Hey, I love that idea.
Partner with us. Check out the website.
Yeah, please do. CloneCopsMovie.com. I think 3 episodes in, I think that's the first time we've said that.
I think it is, yeah.
CloneCopsMovie.com.
That's twice.
CloneCopsMovie.com.
3 times. All right, we'll cut that and drop it into the other episode so people know what's up.
That'll be great. Good job. Thanks. So aside from the replicant security officer outfit, wardrobe, get up, there were a lot of other really interesting wardrobe choices, both for the gang. Towards the end of the movie, we have some clones in other uniforms as well. How did all those come to be?
A lot of credit goes out to Hannah Schmidt, who is our costume designer. We talked a lot about the design of the gang in particular, because without giving too much away, they're not exactly in total control over what they're wearing. So we wanted to make sure that they were represented in a way that kind of told that story as well. So she did great work on that. A lot of the design of the wardrobe was they should be able to make action figures of these people. At some point there's an action figure of everybody in this movie. So we wanted to dress them in a way that would be evocative of that. We talked a lot about, with the Hit Squad, we talked a lot about G.I. Joe and Power Rangers and that sort of thing, and what would those guys look like as toys come to life. And she did just a phenomenal job with such a small amount of resources. I mean, it really is incredible to see across the board, everybody, but our wardrobe department especially managed to really pull off some incredible stuff. And it helped too that everything takes place in one day, so there aren't any wardrobe changes. So everybody was wearing the same thing throughout the entire movie. And I think as independent filmmakers, you might not think about that too much, but yeah, when you can really cut costs by having everything kind of take place in one day.
Yeah, and again, on that indie filmmaker tip, most of the stuff in the wardrobe is off the shelf. There's a few things that she sewed, but that's why you hire somebody that has that background. Don't just wing it yourself and say, the actors will just bring what they want to wear. If you've got somebody that's creative in that way, like Hannah is, she can pull from all these different online areas, and build this thing out for us. That was really cool. That first shirt, I mean, Chuck had those made. He uploaded the design to an online web thing. I think people think in movies, there's probably somebody making these, specially each one by hand. It's like, no, man, we're using the same mechanisms that everybody else has. And in our case, sometimes even cheaper than other people are doing it.
Yeah. That was going to be my other question too, though. Is there like a codex of all the components of whether it's the gang or others, like for the cosplayers of the world? If I want to be Brick for Halloween, can I do that?
I think there needs to be. I don't know that there is currently, but by the time you're listening to this, I think that should be our goal, that you should be able to get onto CloneCopsMovie.com and find that codex, right? Because that's our goal. That's what we want. We would love to see people dress as these characters. That would be a huge thrill.
Yeah.
Right. And
what is a codex?
Is this another spiffball thing?
I really don't know what that means.
Well, not to derail the conversation, but we premiered our film at Gen Con, which is North America's largest tabletop gaming convention in Indianapolis, over 70,000 people. They've got a film fest component, but there's a ton of cosplay there, and it was super cool. We went in costume, both Danny and I, and walking around amongst all these people from known IPs, and still having people, hey, stop! I'm trying to read that shirt. Hey man, what are y'all from?
Yep.
This is what a crazy look. Again, it's we know we're onto something because it's evocative and people want to talk to us about it or want to take photos with us, right? It's like none of those people I suspect had seen the trailer or seen anything about the film, but they saw the Clone Cops out there and wanted to take a photo with it because it was meaningful to them, or we struck a right note somewhere in the ingredients. So yeah, that's indie filmmaker, we're talking about how will we know what the next step is or the next phase. And so there are some easily identifiable things. And one of those certainly is, I can't wait to get out there and meet somebody wearing the shirt. They can buy the rash guard right now off of our website.
Yeah.
NafariCorp.com.
NafariCorp.com, that's right. Or get to it through CloneCopsMovie.com.
The fanny pack?
The fanny, yeah. So you can build this stuff out, and I'm still rocking this costume out on a promotional tour. I feel like I'm going to be wearing this thing for the next 5 years if that's what it takes to get Clone Cops off the ground. And I can't wait to meet somebody in the wild dressed up like a clone cop. It's the Spider-Man meme,
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Then let's talk a little bit about some of the other world building that went on aside from just the wardrobe components, specifically some of the Nefari Corp world. We essentially created this corporate entity from nothing. How did that happen?
Yeah, it was it was a lot of fun. A lot of inspiration was drawn from the concept art for sure. And then with my graphic design background, I was able to explore a few different options and sent those to these guys to let them choose. And, hey, is this what you're thinking in your head? This is kind of where I would love to lean if we could, or whatever the case may be. It ended up kind of being this almost like for a company that takes itself too seriously, and here's what they would put out, And from the posters in the background, from the kind of earlier scene, almost like the first scene of the movie, to what are the training videos look like? The Fari Corps. There's a really cool scene. I won't give too much away because it's kind of a spoiler, but there's a part where the screen turns to like a screensaver, and it's very ominous. This Nefari Corps logo. And it's almost like, okay, well, this is the first kind of like, here's the glimpse into, okay, this is a company is evil, but it's layered with all of this really funny kind of iconography, basically.
One of my favorite things that you designed was there's a poster that's Nefari. It's like the United States wing of Nefari.
Yes.
And it says Nefari, and then underneath it's U.S.
Yes.
So it reads as nefarious.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, man, that's so funny and it's so apropos to me that it's like this giant corporate interest that doesn't even realize what they're saying with their marketing terms. Like somebody was like, "Yep, Nefari U.S. That's us," and like. Because how often does that happen in normal life where you're looking at somebody, you're like, did anybody even read this? Like, that's so clearly.
We are kind. We are Nefari U.S.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of this movie, and from the design perspective, is that you can watch it and see something new every single time. There's so much stuff in this movie in the background, and like the tiny little bits and bobs that
the stickers on the computer.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And then I'm not going to give it away, but the one in the bottom left that you see, was that an original design? Did we find that somewhere?
No, I made that up. I thought, oh, well, that would be cool to just stick on there to go, okay, well, maybe they have some thing that they remember, I don't know.
I meant it's hard to talk about this without giving it away, but my little like headcanon about that sticker is that there's some employee that's like got a crush on Cypher that's like trying to warn her, and he came in and put that sticker on.
I love that.
Like that's where I kind of went with that.
That's good.
All right, we'll put a spoiler alert warning for this episode. The sticker says,
"You've been here before."
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much of that stuff, and it's just such an addition to, I think, so many movies, especially movies of our budget. If you take the time to create all this stuff, you want to make sure it's seen, So I feel like so many movies would make all that stuff front and center, and they would single on it, and you would show all of it. And we had so much great stuff that we were able to just put it in the background and let it live there and be part of the world, and not so it's discoverable. It's not something that we're throwing in your face. It's something that as you're watching the movie the second or third time, you're like, oh, that's a thing. Like, I didn't see that thing this time.
Yeah. We've discussed a handful of times how fortunate we are to have found each other as a team, right? Because there's no way in the world that I could have done any of the stuff that Chuck did, and just given Chucky his flowers, where it's like, man, he built this whole world out in pre-production so that when we shot, we had everything we needed. And then, spending countless hours doing all the VFX, because you didn't have any VFX background, but you knew Adobe. Right?
Yes.
You knew the Adobe suite.
Adobe literate for sure.
And we'd found a couple of professional VFX supervisors or artists, and they were like, you guys can do this yourselves, right? Like that's such an indie film inspiration of talking to people that are doing it professionally and hearing them say, you know what, it's going to be tough. You're going to learn as you go, but like this isn't rocket science,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And so
I love talking. Do you remember his name?
Yeah, Phillip Moore.
Phillip Moore. Just that one conversation that he was so brilliant enough to give us that day where we sat down and talked. That was the inspiration I needed to go, okay, I can do this. I can do this.
He's VFX supervisor on Stranger Things and on a bunch of big budget Hollywood movies, and he happened to move from LA to Middle Tennessee, and I saw that and just shot him an email, and we hopped on, and I was like, and we thought we were going to hire him to, supervise or just help or something.
Yeah.
And instead, he inspired.
He inspired.
That's great.
I can do it.
I feel like too, as we progressed, because you did it almost linearly. Like you started at the beginning of the movie and then worked your way through.
Yeah.
And definitely as we were giving notes and we were looking at stuff like this towards the back end of the movie, it was like clear that you were feeling more comfortable in it and that you were your process was getting faster and like slimmer.
Yes.
And is there anything that you wish, now that we're picture locked and the movie's out, is there anything that you wish
Yes.
you could go back and like
Yes.
100% just be like, this is the thing I would change?
100% is Brick's first blood drip.
Oh yeah.
It bothers the crap out of me. It's just so slow. I'm like, the blood doesn't drip like that, That's the one thing I go, oh God, I don't need to watch this.
Nefari blood
But the
drips like
second
that.
blood drip, I'm super proud of when he's actually. Oh, I'm giving too much away. See,
That's
spoiler
okay.
alert.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Whole episode.
So anyway, that's the one. That's the one thing. There's several other ones. I'm not gonna lie.
I have a ton of things
Yep.
I would like to change that I did.
I understand.
Not me. Happy with all of it. Thank you.
Yeah, I wouldn't change a thing. And then Clone Alone.
Oh, yeah, Clone Alone.
Do we use it? Was it in there?
It's in there.
It is.
Yeah.
You got to find it.
It's
but
a
in there.
DVD case, Clone Alone 2, and it is a pornographic clone movie that's on One Tank Frank's desk, his workstation.
Love it.
Oh man.
And Chucky made this perfect looking DVD, and it's in my basement. And sometimes my kids have found it. Daddy, what's this? It's not for you.
Not for you.
I'll explain when you get older.
Oh, those were fun.
That's great. Yeah, absolutely amazing job, Chuck. Loved every little Easter egg that exists in there.
Well, and just the reason we were able to punch above our weight, it feels like, from an indie, filmmaker standpoint, is because of the commitment of Chuck and Corey of bringing the look. You can't do this by yourself. It takes a team, and if you're lucky enough to find teammates that give a shit like you do, then that's, to me, is the recipe for success. Because I'll work my ass off for hours, but if I'm the only one doing it, I'm not going to get where I need to be.
Well, I remember too, while we were shooting, you coming up and being like, I feel like I'm not doing anything, and I'm like, I just feel guilty. You guys are working so hard, and I feel like I'm not doing anything. I was like, you will be. You don't enjoy this time because you got
wait.
a lot coming.
No idea. And then we'll talk about this in a later episode, I think, right? But there's just so much I would have done differently. Even us working together, I gave some wrong calls,
I was just doing what the VFX soup told me to do.
I understand.
Well, but I mean, again, that's what a great lesson to filmmakers everywhere, where it's like, you just got to do the thing and you're going to learn a ton. And even if you don't do it perfectly, just do it so that you can learn. Because if you don't try and fail, then you'll never know that lesson.
Yep.
Right. And so, yeah, we learned a ton that we'd love to use in Clone Cops 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Oh.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Clone Cops 2, the screen replacement.
Replacement of the screen. Too.
What not to do by Charles Royce.
No, you did fantastic. It really was great.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I'm very happy with the way things look. And the thing too that we hear a lot is so much of what people compliment about the film is your work. It's the ads. People love the ads, and they talk a lot about them. And people talk a lot about Crime Time 360 and all the stuff that's going on there, and how much they enjoy that part of it. And then the other compliment I get all the time about, even though you might feel like the effects aren't up to snuff or whatever, they don't feel as polished as you want them to be, they fit with the overall look of the movie. That everything kind of lives in that world, and everything has that kind of rough sheen to it. So it all works together.
Yeah.
In a way, if we had gotten like some,
Perfect VFX,
it almost wouldn't look as good because the lab looks kind of rinky dink, you know, and like all these other little like rinky dink kind of weird things work together to build the world up that we're telling, the story that we're telling of. Like the world's kind of dumb now. Everything has kind of gotten dumber, and so it's perfect. It works great.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about some other world building, specifically with the props.
Yeah. So I'm a prop master by trade. That's how I came up through the film industry. And when we were very first getting started in pre-production, we talked a lot about Psycho Gorman and how the guy who made that was a makeup effects artist, and he knew he could build the suit. He knew he could build the guy. And so we kind of approached this from that angle with props. Is like, I know I can build all these props. I know I can make all these fun things. And we spent a significant amount of pre-production time building those props.
And when you say we, it was all you, man.
Not
it was all Dan. I mean, pretty much.
A lot you.
But I 3D printed a lot of stuff, and just kind of used my years of experience in making some fun stuff. And in truth, I got to make stuff that I've always wanted to do, that I'd never, like ideas that I had.
Like what?
Like the acid grenades, for instance, was something that I knew I could do, that I'd kind of played around with on some other things with using the glow sticks. And I knew that we could make something really fun and interesting and visually engaging with that. And so that was one of the things we did. The guns, I knew we wanted to paint those all to be kind of like clown colors. And we used all airsoft. I knew we could pull that off. And yeah, I think we really just focused on kind of creating that spectacle with the props. If we did it again, I would love to have somebody else do that.
But that's what it takes for the first, if you're out there watching, it's like, what do I have to do? You got to do everything. You got to be willing to do it all the first time.
Yeah, well, and the helmets too, to a certain degree, which we did work on together. But the helmets came to us unfinished. They printed them, but we had to put the lenses in. We had to put the mouthpiece in. You wired up the LED thing to make it speak, and then we painted them and all that stuff. So we finished the helmets, and then when it came time to shoot, we had Jill Ledbetter, who's a good friend of mine that I've worked with a bunch, come be our prop master, and she did a phenomenal job of keeping everything organized and making sure everything was handled safely, which is a huge, even though they're airsoft guns, it's still a huge deal, and you still have to make sure that everybody feels safe and comfortable on set when there are firearms on set.
What about Brick's prom date? Tell me about that one.
The BFG?
The BFG. Yeah, we called it the BFG in internal dialogue. I don't think we ever put that on screen, did we? That one was a backpack mister that we got from. I saw somebody using it during COVID. I saw one. It was like a backpack. They used it to sanitize rooms, and they'd walk in with this thing and spray the whole room. So I got one of those, and then the gun I think was like a one of those like slime ball shooting guns. Like you fill up water with the little pellets that turn to slime, and you could shoot those.
The Orbeez?
The Orbeez, yeah. It was like one of those, and we just kind of married the two together and gave it a paint scheme, and then I wired up all the like lights and stuff. I 3D printed some pieces for that and wired all that up. And it actually, a feature we never did use, it's vented. The tank was supposed to be filled with water and dry ice so smoke would come out of it. And I totally forgot to do that on the day. 100% forgot to do it.
Well, Clone Cops 2?
Yeah.
Now with dry eyes.
Now with dry eyes. So when we do the special edition, that'll be the thing that I go back and George Lucas.
That's fun, dude. And as you know, I mean, I've written some stuff and acted in some stuff, but this was the deepest I'd been on production of a film, and so to see you do your thing was so cool. Where I was like, this is how you make it look like that, and like things that I would never think to use in props, And I was like, well, how are you going to make it look good on cam? And it did.
Well, that's the brilliant part about what Danny has done with props throughout his career, probably, but especially on Clone Cops, is that Charles Royce would have just picked up something on Amazon that looks kind of similar to what you were thinking. And Danny's like, no, you have to add this or add that. You have to make it unique, something that looks great on camera. And that's what he did with every single thing. My favorite one being the droid. The little
crab.
tiny
The crabby?
crab, the crabby. Oh my god!
Your favorite, Danny's least favorite?
I hate the
I
crab.
love that thing so much.
The crab is I went round and round on how to do that thing, and it's a remote control car. I was trying to 3D print all these things to make it really cool and make it like this really unique, interesting thing, and I couldn't make it work. And what I wound up doing was I took a Tupperware container, flipped it over, spray painted it black, glued it to the top of the of the RC car, and I had all these bips and bops from other 3D printing pieces. There's pieces from the grenades glued to it. There's all this other like just random riff-raff stuff that I had laying around that I had got the glue gun out and I just went to town. I just started hot gluing crap to it.
I love it.
Movie
The way
magic.
it moves across that uneven ground.
Oh, it is very funny. It's a very funny. Like I mean, I remember when we premiered it and it came out on set for the first time. I was like, this is going to be the thing that people like latch onto. It's my least favorite. All the work I put in on all this other stuff, and this will be the thing that people are like, that's my droid right there.
That's my boy. Yeah. What about Dentatrack? How did you make that?
I made the Dentatrack. Yeah, that's my mouth.
Molded.
Yeah. Oh no, that's right. I did one with my mouth and it didn't work because I couldn't get the bar to set into
That
it.
wire,
The
yeah.
wire. And we had in a previous episode of Nashville Dad's Club, we had a shot from the inside of somebody's mouth, and we had bought a pair of like dental teeth teeth model, and I used that to like mold it, and all the teeth came out when I took it out, and I had to like pry all the teeth off of the plastic. But yeah, it was a thermal molded plastic that I pushed up into that model and then added the wire to it. And
You put a USB?
Put a USB in there and wired it up so that we could run a little coin battery and make that turn on and blink. Yeah, and we had 2 or 3 versions of that. We had the wired model, and then we had the model that Skylar actually put in his mouth. That was just like as safe as we could make it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of really fun things that show up from a prop standpoint. I think you did a great job.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was fun. I had a great time doing it. And like I said, it was a chance to like really play with the medium and do some fun stuff.
Yeah.
And from getting your movie made, that was one of our strategic opportunities at the beginning. It's like, we know that you can make some cool looking stuff that everybody can't do, you know? And so like, how do we, again, we all worked on the film for free. So we got, I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars of work out of Charles for sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, all of us, right? But it's like, cool, if you're making movies with your homies, with your friends, like, and you're all pouring everything you got into it, what can you kind of divide and conquer?
Yeah.
And find people with those complementary skill sets that can bring production value. Because the only thing that matters is what shows up on the screen at the end of the day, you know? And so the fact that you were able to add so much production value with your background is you know, I mean, we could have made a lot of other movies and not leaned into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there's just in props, there's a saying of it doesn't have to be right, it just has to look right. So a lot of times it's about finding the thing that you can pull off. It's not about, you know, it doesn't have to be the exact thing. It's like, but if it's close enough that you can fool the camera, then you're good. And that's, you know, look with the camera, don't look with your eyes. Because
Right.
Absolutely.
through the camera, it's gonna look right. When you're sitting here holding it, it looks dumb. But I promise you, it's gonna look right when it's in front of the camera.
Yeah, no, that's great. Now, I know in a previous episode, we talked a little bit about locations and securing our locations. Talk to me about the set design for each of those once we got into the location. Like, and maybe like, what was your favorite and what was your least favorite to work in?
I think my favorite set was probably the lab. It was something that we all kind of got to chip in and work on together with the production designer, Ben Johnson. And I come from that world. My first gig was as a art department PA. So I love building sets, and it's super fun to me. And to get to come in, and normally, you know, the director would not be at all involved in building a set, and to be able to come in and kind of like help design that and help place things where I wanted them to be, so that on the day when we shot it, everything was exactly where we wanted it to be, was super fun. I had a blast.
Well, and that's that indie film thing, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, dude, we're involved in every aspect of all of it. And yeah, we came in on the weekend, right? And helped
with your
finish
kids.
it.
Yeah, brought the kids in, put them to work. Use everything at your disposal when trying to get your indie film made. That's the takeaway there. No, and I had a background in AV, so I've hung 1,000 TVs, so I got to help build out that console.
That's right.
Got to help kind of design the pod, what that might look like and how that might work, and draw up some schematics. So just leaning on a kind of engineering background for that stuff, and all that cabling and the piping and the tubing. Getting to dress all that in on the walls. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
And figuring out how we were going to pump the sauce. That was a whole thing.
Right.
Oh,
There's a scene where we throw a version of me into the reclamation unit, and then practically shoot a bunch of sauce, reclaiming the clone, recycling him, and had a few different pumps from Home Depot, and a big old bucket of pink goo inside that thing.
I'm so glad that worked, because
Didn't we try to
figuring
do a
that out in
manual one?
VFX would have not been fun. So glad that worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was one take. I mean, we had one shot, right? We shot it, rolled on it, and that's the one that's in the movie.
Yeah. And I think too, you did all the screens. We did do some screen replacements, but you also preloaded a bunch of screens that could show up, so that would save us some time.
Yeah.
And we had some green screens, so we could do screen replacements. The lab was super fun. The trick with that location, which we've talked about this in previous episode, was that there was already so much stuff there that we were able to like borrow a lot from what was already in the location and move it around and dress sets with it. A lot of the hideout stuff has medical equipment in it because we were in an old mental hospital. So we were able to pull a lot of that stuff. The thing remember we used a kiln.
Oh, yeah.
Like
As a sauce base.
The thing that the sauce sits on is an old kiln. We stuck some lights on it and forgot to turn them on. Those lights turn on. We put those emergency lights on there.
Did not know that.
Nate brought them and he's like, "Oh, check these out." And I was like, "Those are great." And they were magnetic and they stuck right on the side. And I was like, "Oh, we'll turn those on when we go and we're doing stuff." Never did it. We never turned them on.
We were supposed to do that when we got the dry ice for the BFG. For the gun.
Add that to the IMDb trivia.
And then the inside of the reclamation or the cloning pod might, if you're at all an avid swimmer, that might look familiar. That's just a pool float.
It looked great.
Yeah, it looks great. Well, the lighting really sells it.
Yeah. What was the reclamation pod?
That was a shower.
It's a corner shower.
Yeah.
Also a Lowe's or Home Depot buy.
But you did that, you did a cutout that says reclamation, like a CNC cutout.
Yeah.
And that sells it. That thing right there really made it like, oh yeah, that's sci-fi. Look at that.
That's definitely not my shower. That's
That's a
Right.
reclamation
That's a
unit.
reclamation.
Right.
a reclamation
From the
unit.
future.
Yeah, it's a reclamation unit until you open the door to go and it goes.
And then there's like soap caddies
soap
inside.
dispenser, yeah.
I had to remove those.
Low budget
God.
indie filmmaking, baby. Finding a way to make it happen.
Yeah,
Doesn't
it's
have to
just
be
how
the
it
thing, just has to look like the thing.
So much pink paint. We smeared
For the
pink
sauce.
paint everywhere.
I have people ask me all the time, what is the sauce? What is it really? It's water and pink paint.
Yeah, it was tempera paint, pink tempera paint, which is water soluble, and just a bunch of water.
There you go.
Yeah, but it stains. Baby, does it stain?
And it floods real easy if you let it out. Referring back to episode, I don't know, one or two.
yeah.
We were discussing how we flooded our lab set.
Yeah.
Our favorite set, we flooded out. Yeah.
I'm gonna guess yours. I know your favorite set, and it's the main hideout with those big windows.
Absolutely. When we did our first location scout together and we walked through there, I immediately fell in love with these. It's just a wall of old, shitty looking like fiberglass windows that I knew, number one, would make it a lot easier to light consistently, but also knew like that's going to give really amazing texture on camera. And it absolutely did. And then the other fun thing was, as we were talking about what does set design look like in there, the opposite side of the room from the windows originally was just going to be a room full of like old appliances and boxes and just look like the abandoned warehouse that it's meant to be. And I pitched you this idea of, hey, can we do that, but also like just hang a giant wall of dirty plastic sheeting, both for production design, but also to let us hide a wall of lights behind there. And then treat that very much like a pre-lit set to let us really quickly shoot 360 degrees. But anytime you catch that on camera, you're just like, oh yeah, they're in an abandoned warehouse, wrapped in plastic, covering all this old ratty stuff that, again, gave us some really great texture and really helped from a lighting standpoint too, which was great.
Like it's motivated, but man, did it cut down on room flips, right? Because you
Absolutely.
created a light box.
Right. And then we had 4 lights on each side of the room. So we just had whatever we wanted our ratios to be from a lighting standpoint. We would just set those based on, where we fell during the time of day or where we were in the room. We would lift one side or the other, and it made it super easy and convenient to get a really cool look in there.
What I wish I knew at 25 that I didn't learn until 41 when we shot the movie is like light so that you don't have to reset your lights every single time.
Yeah.
Right? And we did that in both the hideout and the lab. I was so impressed with the work the lighting team did in the lab and in the atrium, really every location. But instead of having these long, arduous room flips and relights, you guys lit them so they were ready to rock.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
It was really cool to go outside and see what was happening on the other side of those windows at different points of the day. You're like, oh my God, these guys are brilliant. They don't have to worry one bit about what's going on inside.
It wasn't me. That was all Barrett Dennison and Chris Dyer. I just said, I want it to look like this. Can you make it look like this? And they said, we got you.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a few things in indie filmmaking that are tells that it's low budget. It's usually poor audio or poor lighting, and like we were so fortunate to have both those bases covered in really competent ways that went above and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, this is a really insightful look at the developing and designing the world of Clone Cops. And I appreciate spilling the beans.
We did it for you, Corey, because you asked.
Just for me?
And for all of you out there watching the Clone Cops podcast. We're glad to have you. And we're going to miss you until next time, aren't we?
So much.
We are.
Good luck, moron. I live in space. Bye.
Brian Brown taking us out.
Every time.
Hey, Mr. Ice Cream Man, we've been waiting all day. Why you take so long to come back this way? Had to
He's busy. He got things going on.
appreciate the favor. This ain't meant for everybody. What you need,
I got it. Play up.